Oh, Pearson gets into the 95 of Folks. Here comes the caution.
Flag is dropped here at Daytona and away. Joe for the first time. Nicholas Morcel, Sean.
Looks like most get through unscathed. Look at that, there's Reed Gibson. A big move at the inside line of Dom's, possibly a little bit of contact.
Now as we've got 3 wide action going through turns 1 and 2.
And they're underway. Eric Hahn takes a nice jump. Wilson hasn't let him go very far.
Nice to come out here for Circuit Spa Francorchamps. Alex Johnson's off to a brilliant start there.
Just how oddly shaped this one is. We saw in the background Eric Hahn go for a bit of a swing, and he's gone and he's over.
New stuff. Cody Graham's the one-on-one up into second place. Alex Johnson 6/10 to lead at the moment.
They're dicey up front. There's Andrew Kessel, just insane.
They are ready to go. The lights are out and away we go for the very first time here at Okayama International Circuit. Finley Fitzsimmons.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to the Old Bastards Racing League, brought to you today by Team Squad. Here with the Old Bastards, and here joined alongside with a bastard myself in the booth, Eric Essery as well joining us. But we're here, we're broadcasting you the action in 1080p and 60 frames a second, if my Aussie internet will allow me to do so. We're here at Dover International Speedway tonight, here producing a good one on the concrete with the Monster Mile. I am hearing that we may actually have a driver to talk to while we're watching qualifying going ahead, so I will probably hand us over to Eric Essery, and he will give you a little bit more of an insight, as well as bringing in, I believe it's Clay Walker, to come and talk to us as well while we get ready for that. So Eric, take it away.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to be here for another week of this. I do have Clay Walker. He just qualified, it looks like, 4th on the grid so far, unless somebody throws up another lap. So, Clay, first off, good run in qualifying. And I made a note before this weekend even started that you were a guy to watch out for this type of surface with the tire wear. I know you're a long run kind of a driver. What's your thoughts going into this one?
Yeah, I like just to say hey to y'all guys and thank y'all for what you do. I just got to stay clean. I got to make sure I don't push off 2 and 4, get into that wall and stay out of trouble. I like concrete for some reason. I don't know why, but it just, man, it gets along. I just hope I can finish well today.
Awesome. We're going to start calling you Concrete Clay then, if you're the concrete driver. And one thing I noticed, you don't have any cup wins so far that you've been running, but 4 top 10s this year in the short amount of races you've run. So I'm looking forward to having a good run. So good luck out there on the track.
Well, thank you. Maybe today would be the first day.
Yes, sir.
All right, well, that was Clay Walker joining us. We're just trying to get a better image of his vehicle sitting there in the pit lane, unfortunately. Not seeming to get a very close-up camera angle on him there, but he's right on the back corner. Obviously, that will change as results on qualifying get fielded up with this one. We've still got a few minutes left. Quite a few drivers choosing not to qualify too much. So it looks like Wayne Hufford and Dwayne MacArthur are just starting their runs, so they're making their way around, as we are watching Wayne Hufford right now making his way through. And Walker still sitting in the 4th position, so still having a very good run so far for him. And yeah, I guess the question I've got to ask you, Eric, got to bring you in once again real quick. What do you expect to see from these drivers here tonight? We're going to be clean all the way through. We're going to have a couple of cautions throwing a spanner in the works. What are we thinking is going to happen with these drivers tonight? We've got a full grid of about 38 drivers. What do we reckon?
Well, it's even though these guys are the top of the line as far as clean racers that you're going to find in iRacing and as far as the league overall, you can't expect Dover to go caution-free anytime. So this is just a treacherous track, a lot to look forward to as far as how the strategy is going to play out. One thing about this, it's a 170-lap race. These guys can go approximately 90 laps on fuel if they wanted to push it to that. The problem is the tires can't take it. So as you heard Clay mention in his interview there, watching corner number 2 and 4, that's where the issues compound themselves. So you'll see a lot of guys either wear out the rear tire or the front tire, and it all comes down to the exit of the corner where the banking falls off and it's a transition. And so that's where you'll see the problem spots. If they were to go green the whole way, you would probably see them split that and make 2 stops just to gain the advantage they'd have on tires. So say lap 56 or so for that first pit stop. So you may still see that if we make it that far. But like I said, it's just impossible to believe you could go 170 laps with no cautions with this many drivers on the track.
I think you've probably hit the nail on the head there. That's probably about as what we're going to see as Josh Robinson looks like he has taken over pole position from teammate Tom Ogle by less than 100th of a second. So that's actually incredible, as those two drivers are going to be definitely going toe-to-toe and potentially taking it out up the front as we get ready to run through the grid. We also have Pete Parabola wishing the 42 machine a great run. So I believe the 42, that's going to be of Mark Fish. So we look forward to seeing him in a few seconds on the grid, as well as making his way to the front in the race. But starting on pole, we are going to have Joshua Robinson, as we're so used to seeing up front. A good qualifying start for him, and with tyre wear being a factor, we will see if he is going to continue his trend of making his way through the field to the front on older tyres, or if he can keep the front, I should say. Tom Ogle lining up alongside Dan Hill and Clint Rice in the second row, as Lee Warsdale and Clay Walker are in our third row. Lloyd Moore and Brian Glass rounding out our fourth row. Al Turner with Dwayne MacArthur, the legend, starting in the 10th position. Not as good as he'd like to see. Look for him to find his way a little bit further up through the field as well as time goes on. Eddie Jones starting right behind him in the 11th spot on the outside, as Chris Bates also is going to be in the 12th position there in your 6th row as we cycle the grid on back. The 7th row is going to consist of Brian Lynch and Brian McRubbin, the Brian row we should call it, as Jonathan Green and Bob Fellenbaum are going to be in the 15th and 16th position. Robert Garisco and Brian Lindsay are going to be hanging out in your 9th row. Bruce Pearson and Alan Wanamaker in that number 20 position. Mark Schrader with Michael Dow in 21st and 22nd. Mark Fish, there he is in the 23rd spot. We're already seeing cheers for his name, so look for him to potentially make his way forward and show a bit of love to the cameras as we keep watching this one. James Waldo, where we always look for him, and there he is in the 24th position. So we're going to be keeping an eye on a lot of these drivers as we continue scrolling through the grid. Greg McDaniel and Kermit Gentry Jr. in our 13th row. Ian Gear and Wayne Hufford in the 14th row. Dustin Martinson and Jason Fellenbaum in our 15th row. Courtney Nelson and Short Foltz in the 16th row. Mike Lynch, Cameron Chaussee in the 17th row. Victor Lane, Troy Baker in the 18th row. And finally, Bert Dodson Dirty, Bert Dirty Dodson, I should say it that way. That sounds much better. And Michael Lemenchak rounding out the field as we struggle to get our breath through it as well, as we get ready to roll out with 38 drivers, a full field here tonight, and it's looking like it's going to be a spectacular one.
Yeah, I love this Dover racetrack, just as I mentioned earlier, but one thing we'll see early on is comers and goers. So if you see a guy that really takes off really fast, looks like he's making his way through the field, give him about 15 laps and keep your eye on him. He may be going the other way.
Right, as we get ready to rock it and roll it, that was a very quick start, as I was expecting a little bit more of a caution, but here we go as Tom Ogle and Josh Robinson continue side by side. It looks like Ogle might actually have the advantage on that high side, getting a little bit more of a run as the concrete really smooths out only to 9 degrees on the straights from 24 on the banking. So a really big difference here in that, and it really, you can feel that in the car as it really goes from the banking to the straightaway. It looks like there's a little bit of chaoticness happening further back through the field as Clay Walker and Clint Rice just behind, with Dwayne MacArthur trying to make up moves very early on as well. Al Turner just behind looking in as well as MacArthur goes underneath Rice and takes that spot away for the 6th position. Turner's also trying to force his way in the 76 machine underneath Clint Rice. And Rice had a really good qualifying run as well. As we're definitely underway here, that is for sure, as it looks like this is going to be the battle. And there's already a turn as Clint Rice and Al Turner get together. And there's a caution straight away. It only took 3 laps and they still come barreling in. Courtney Nelson, Bob Fellenbaum, Troy Baker, all involved in that one as well. And the caution definitely coming out as we get a quick replay of that one. So we're going to queue this one up, and it looks like that's going to happen a little bit further up than what was being shown. So that was actually to do with, I want to say, pretty... Alright, so it happened just in front of Waldo. You always want to find where Waldo is. And... Okay, so... Look at this once again, because we know Clint Rice was involved. I'm going to do this as quickly as I can. So it looks like Rice left enough room, but the 76 machine just would not go all the way to the apron and just caught up into the back and spun Rice around. That's the 76 of Al Turner. And it just looks like a lot of the cars that were in that high lane already had nowhere to go. And just everyone kind of piling in there, looking like they're getting involved a little bit. Fellenbaum, you could see there. And getting smacked in the back, almost perfect timing as we have a look at the 65 machine plowing in as well. That's going to be Kermit Gentry Jr. as well as the White Castle machine coming in. So, yeah. And the 30 as well getting involved very late. That's going to be Courtney Nelson coming in. Well, hopefully we get those drivers done and cared for in the care center. As it looks like that's... Yep, there comes down the 76 machine into pit road. As expected, Al Turner coming down after causing that one. Potentially, I probably shouldn't say causing that one, but didn't get down low enough into the corner. And really an unfortunate situation to be in. Brian Lindsay also down pit road as well as Clint Rice. Bob Fellenbaum joining them as well. So Eric, not sure how well you saw that one as well, but what was your take on that incident?
Yeah, it's just one of those situations early on. I think Clint Rice had, as you just mentioned, he had a really good qualifying run and was losing a couple spots there, just got caught on the outside, and I think he just found a hole and maybe, it's racing deal. I don't want to blame either one of these guys, but it looked like he was just trying to fill the hole, and Al Turner was just trying to get another position there. So, just close racing. I think both guys could have been a little bit, a little bit more conservative right there at that point. But, it's a competitive league. Everybody's going after what they can.
Absolutely. Well, as we get ready, caution flags don't last very long here at Dover, as we're finding out. It is a 1 mile circuit, so a bit bigger than some of the other tracks on the schedule, but certainly not many caution laps as we get ready to go once again. Tom Ogle getting a nice big jump ahead of Robinson. Dan Hill right on Robinson's tail though, not letting Robinson leave his sights. Worsdale on the high side, Dwayne MacArthur just underneath. Looks like MacArthur's going to take that spot from the 99 machine. Clay Walker trying to get his nose involved there. Really, from what I'm seeing, Eric, it looks like everyone wants to keep that car when they get stuck on the high side. You want to keep them up there to try and retain that position.
Yeah, and it's one of those you can run the top here, but you pay a price for it with your tires, and so that's what I was saying earlier. You're going to see some guys that are really looking good. Maybe you don't see them running up front that much, but they're really abusing those tires, and it's really easy to do here. And the guys like Robinson, I'm not surprised to see him give up the lead like he did. I wouldn't be surprised for him to just chase Ogle down here if we get a little bit of green flag running.
Well, to your point there, Robinson, one of those drivers that is so good at managing tire wear and seems to be able to really be strong on those long runs. So we'll have to keep checking in with him to see if he gets around Tom Ogle as the run progresses, and if we have a lot of these long green flag runs that we may end up seeing here tonight, see how well that actually works out for him. But speaking of someone who's not saving their tires very much, Dwayne MacArthur is on an absolute charge, making his way up 6 spots so far, almost 7 as he tries to work his way around downhill, or underneath downhill I should say, as we have another caution coming out a little bit further back. It looks like Mike Lynch is going to be involved in that one. Very sad to see our only triple number driver coming out tonight getting involved in a bit of an incident as he smacked the outside wall on exit, and Courtney Nelson just fortunately got right into the side of him, obviously not expecting, neither driver expecting the wall to be right there. And the John Deere 117 machine just goes for a little bit of a spin, and unfortunately not much of an apron at Dover to get out of the way of a lot of these drivers, so the caution flag being thrown there just for safety's sake, and thankfully everyone gets through unscathed.
Yeah, one thing you don't really recognize when you're just watching from these TV angles is under in practice you're generally got the track to yourself, maybe one or two cars, but when you're in the pack, especially in the back, and these three-digit guys, they got to start in the back every race until they pass this probation period that they're in. But you're kind of blinded. You're down in the car. All you see is the back bumper of all these other cars in front of you, and sometimes you just lose track of where you are on the racetrack. And it looked like it just got a little high there and ran out of room.
Absolutely. You know, that wall can creep up on you a lot sooner than you'd think. A lot of the times when these drivers are driving around, that wall, you know, it stays where it is, but when you're driving, it honestly feels like it gets closer to you. I definitely can see that, as we're getting, I would say, more than a lot of love right now from Pete Parabola. A lot of love is being sent to the 42 machine, so we might actually take a quick look at Mark Fish and get your opinion on his race so far. I know it's only been 13 laps, but Eric, if you've got any insight into his performance at the moment, that would be amazing. If you don't, fair enough, because as I said, it's only been 13 laps, and he's just come down pit road, get some 4 fresh good years on there.
Yeah, Marcus, he's another one of those guys that kind of showed up in the league, ran competitive in the other series. He's actually got a win in the truck series that we run on Wednesday nights. I think it was at Michigan. But in the Cup Series, it's just been a little off on the stats. But you know, he's relatively new in the Cup. He's moved up, only has a handful of starts, so just getting his feel for these cars. They are a lot different. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him start to move up periodically from week to week and until he can start competing for top tens every week.
Yeah, definitely one of those drivers. That GoPro machine, we've seen him actually have spurts of magnificence every so often. So hopefully he can string one together today and find himself up near the top positions as the run progresses. But it's certainly someone that we'll be looking at as we continue going here tonight, as we get ready to go back to green once again. But Dan Hill is going to take over the top spot, as I believe we've had an interesting change in position here. So I want to say that Robinson and Ogle both came down for some tires.
Yeah, about half the field what I noticed pitted there, which you know, this is one thing that's great about it. We haven't ran that many green flag laps, but it doesn't take much to gain lap times. Just a handful of laps on them can make all the difference in the world. These guys went out and practice. They know when it falls off, and usually 3 laps it can mean all the difference. So just when you do pull off and come down pit road, you hope that others come with you. But as you can see, I think Ogle, he's about mid-pack right now. So it'd just be interesting to see how well he can move up, him and Robinson in the 23.
All right, we'll definitely keep an eye on that as we're going to get ready to go to green once again. I believe that pace car is definitely going to make a hard turn. I almost want to have a look at just how hard the turn is onto pit road. We haven't talked about that yet. And of course, some of these drivers actually, I believe they were talking a little bit about how difficult it can be to get on pit road and avoid an incident as you try and make your way down there. So again, that's for future us to discuss, as that's more of a green flag scenario got to worry about there. But we're getting ready to go to green, speaking of, in just a second here, as Dan Hill and Dwayne MacArthur are going to be taking it out. Dwayne with Eddie Jones just behind him. We'll see if he can get a push, and no, that's not quite what happened, as Walker is a lot closer to Dan Hill just in front, so it looks like the two of them may be able to get something going here, but MacArthur is so strong on that outside line, and they're going to stay next to each other. There's a little bit of bumping and grinding between Hill and MacArthur. Thankfully, nothing doing though, as MacArthur is going to take that spot away from Hill, and Hill is going to have to deal and settle with being in the second position now, with Clay Walker and Eddie Jones not too far behind, as well as Lloyd Moore making up our top 5 now. So we'll see how this one plays out, as it looks like the field is fairly single file. We have to go back a little bit of a ways. Ogle is side by side with Wanamaker right there on the high side. Ogle makes that position around, so Ogle back up to 12th position now. And it looks like Cameron Chaussee is going to try and follow him through in the Taco Bell machine. Very, very vivid livery on that one. I've never seen a Taco Bell livery with a bright blue, bright pink, and a purple.
Yeah, a lot of nice paint schemes out here. Ogle obviously got the kind of the bright one of the bunch, but one of our regulars, Mike Watts, he's a big contributor to the paintings. You see probably roughly half the field he's had a part in, so really good painter. He always makes them pop off the track there with the colors he picks.
Yeah, I'm not seeing what's on track, so I think that he's not actually turned up for the Dover race tonight, which is a little bit of a shame, but that is okay, as I'm sure he probably has some other stuff going on. But Dwayne MacArthur just setting the best lap of the race so far with a 23.04, so doing a great job. Trying to fend off Dan Hill though, as Hill is right on the back bumper, and these two drivers have separated themselves from Clay Walker in that third position. So at this point, would you say it's about time, Eric, I just want to pan over to you once more, would you say it's about time to start saving those tires once you find yourself in a fair amount of a gap? Like they've got 1.3 seconds to third behind them, or do you keep pushing to try and expand that gap as much as possible?
No, definitely you want to conserve the tires. Now, we've saw a couple quick cautions, and sometimes that sets the tone for the race, that this is going to be a caution-filled race. But as you see right now, here we are going green for several laps in a row, and the more laps you go, the more spread out and a rhythm everyone gets. But that's what I was about to say here. You got Dan Hill. He's pressuring MacArthur pretty hard here, and probably Dwayne in the 83 Bass Pro Shop car there, he's probably running harder than he wants to just to maintain the lead. And we just talked earlier to Concrete Clay Walker in the 2 car, who's now back to 4th. He's not pushing it right now. He's running his own pace. That's what he's good at. And he's one who could flip the switch here about midway through this run and all of a sudden start picking these guys back off. So it's just one of those things you got to watch for here at Dover.
Absolutely, as you can see now, Chloe Walker in the clutches of Lloyd Moore as Moore goes underneath, as well as Bruce Pearson making his way through. Brian Lynch also trying to follow suit as well. So unfortunately, it looks like wait, I'm a bit lost here. Looks like I'm not showing exactly who I'm thinking of, but yes. Okay, here we go. So Clay Walker's back. I think he dropped from my live timing software for a little bit there. I'm not sure why that happened, but he's back. So that's the main thing now. I'm a little bit less confused. But yeah, it looked like he was dropping back a little bit as he got stuck up on that high side of the banking, but he managed to get his way down just before Brian Lynch took that spot away and has been able to stick to the 6th position now. So he's doing a pretty good job so far of, like you said, probably conserving the tires and just letting these guys go around him and see if he can, I guess, outlast the storm, so to speak. As Tom Ogle in the 11th spot, just taking over the 10th place from Chris Bates, as Bates comes way down the track to try and make sure that he wasn't one of those drivers that got stuck on the high side. Robinson also making his way through. So Robinson up to 13th now. But Ogle's found himself in a position where he's got a big gap in front of him. So a little bit of cleaner air is going to be coming towards that 11 machine, as he's just got to make his marks, hit his marks, and just keep on lapping the field here.
Yeah, he restarted, talking Tom Ogle in the 11 car here. He restarted 16th. He's up to 10th. He was the first car that pitted. So this is kind of our base to see what 3 or 4 green flag laps will mean here. At this moment, I would say it's not paying off because just having to run through traffic's probably burn up what tire he gained from that. And then the longer you go, the more equal the older tires compared to his newer tires will end up being. So I would say at this point that pit stop is not paying off.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, as there's definitely a lot of battling going on here a little bit further down the pack. This is currently for the 17th position. Jonathan Green going underneath Chris Bates there and taking that spot away. I did want to turn our attention a little bit to Greg McDaniel, also receiving some love from the fans on the YouTube side of things. Nathan Reeder cheering on Greg McDaniel, and you know, he's done a fantastic job so far, already up 12 positions from where he started in the number 1 machine, and potentially he and Robinson as well as Ogle may end up doing their usual and working together to try and see if they can make anything happen here in the longer runs. But I will say that he is currently just behind Warsdale, who is separating the 3 drivers from each other. But McDaniel doing a phenomenal job, as we were saying, as we look to pan the camera back towards the front, because Dan Hill has been slowly catching up to MacArthur once more. A 2/10 gap at the moment, and continues to close it down. As he closes up really a lot, you can see his corner entry speed is a lot quicker than MacArthur at the moment, and I'm almost wondering if, like you said, MacArthur didn't really want to run as hard as he was. He was just doing so to try and keep that first place position. And I'm wondering if he's back down just a little bit to try and preserve just a tiny bit more tire life underneath that 83 machine. And Dan Hill is really not wanting to let him save those tires, as he's pressuring as much as he can.
Yeah, I really think, you know, sometimes you find yourself in that position. Dwayne MacArthur, he's really...
lap traffic almost getting in the way
lap.
there. Sorry about that.
Dwayne is very smart about his tires, but sometimes you get yourself in that situation where you're leading, and sometimes it's better to go ahead and burn them up a little more in order to maintain that track position, because if you fall back to second, you know, you just lose that air on your nose, and you just lose your rhythm, and if another caution comes out, you're just that much further behind. You need to maintain the lead if you're there. So I'm also watching in 3rd spot last week's winner, Raging Cajun Jones, we call him. He's sneaking right up in there, and he's no slouch on being able to run on the longer runs as well.
Absolutely not, as Eddie Jones is actually making his way up to this front pack. and he's doing a phenomenal job of it. He's really closing the gap quite significantly every single lap that goes by, and he seems to have found a line that really works for him at the moment. And yeah, it just seems to be working wonders, as he's almost caught right up to the back of Dan Hill already. So like you said, that tyre saving definitely looking like it's coming into play here, as Lloyd Moore is also making gains up to this front pack, not too far behind Eddie Jones there. You can see on the right hand side of the shot there's Lloyd Moore's machine, so also that Wonder White machine coming up to the front.
Yeah,
And
Lloyd Moore, he's another one of those guys. I'm actually surprised to see him gaining this late, because he's one of those that will burn his stuff up quick. But there's nothing wrong with that either. It's a strategy. We've seen a lot of cautions. If you get all you can early and then the caution comes out, you played it perfectly. But the fact that he's still gaining on these guys this far into a run shows he's really coming around. He really fits the paint scheme, Ricky Bobby. You know, he wants to go fast, and that's Lloyd Moore. So wouldn't be surprised to see him get a win at some point, like he did at Bristol earlier this year.
yeah, it's always great talking to any of these drivers, really, when we see them up in victory lane, or just even in a podium. So I'm always very much looking forward to talking to Lloyd Moore, and you may have your own personal reasons, maybe a little bit of a rivalry going on there, Eric, I'm not sure, with Lloyd Moore, and having a little bit of fun there, which is why you may want to talk to him towards the end of this one. But Eddie Jones is caught this pack, but it doesn't look like... I'm always wondering if he's burned up his stuff trying to catch up to this pack, because he caught Dan Hill. I know it's another thing to pass a driver once you catch them, but I thought with the difference in pace that he'd have a bit more of a run coming up to this pack. But it doesn't look quite like he's got exactly what he wants out of this 14 machine at the moment, as he's still struggling behind the 7 of Dan Hill.
Well, one thing I just mentioned just a few laps ago about Tom Ogle in the 11 car, Josh Robinson in the 23, that pit stop didn't pay off, but they have definitely not fallen off all of a sudden. They have picked it up. Ogle's up to 6th and about to take 5th here. So, you know, I go back to, it was just about 3 lap of green flag difference. And now Ogle, he's fast anyways, but the fact that him and Josh have cut through the field the way they have and are still gaining here. So it's just crazy what tires mean here at Dover.
Yeah, and just on that really quick, do you think that the concrete really plays a massive factor into the degradation of these tires? Or do you think it's the track configuration itself, and it doesn't have a whole lot to deal with the fact that this is 100% concrete, as opposed to, say, for example, tarmac on most of the tracks we go to here during this season?
Yeah, definitely the concrete does play a factor in tire wear, but it's just the banking and the way that you roll off into these corners. It's very inviting just to dive off in there a lot harder than you need to. And you'll see these cars kind of go in the corner, and you'll see the nose kind of push up in the middle. All that's doing is just like a cheese grater on that right front tire. And then as you go through the center, these corners are so long and sweeping. You almost need to set these up as 2 different corners and not one long, 180 degree going the other way. You want to get through the first part of the corner, kind of let it take a rest, roll through the middle, and then attack the second part of the corner. You can very much just lean on that right front or right rear, depending on your driving style, and really burn the tires up. And that's the difference between these guys that can run a long run on tires as compared to these guys that fall off, 20 laps into it.
All right, as we just saw Tom Ogle and Josh Robinson almost link up there, and it looks like they're going to, as they passed underneath Lloyd Moore. But you're absolutely correct, and one thing I never get tired of is just seeing how amazing these drivers are. And I know I say that possibly week in and week out, but these guys actually do a phenomenal job of keeping the car underneath them as well as driving as fast as they do. And I couldn't imagine them doing what you do, Eric, as these drivers are a lot more skillful than I could ever hope to be. And I know you're one of those guys that likes to come in and just do your thing, and you find your way up to the front somehow. And I say somehow, I'm sure you have your own strategy to do so. It's always an absolute blast watching that happen. As speaking of, Greg McDaniel is making his way through the field, up 15 spots right now, currently your biggest mover on track. Working on getting past Lee Warsdale for the 16th position he's moved up. He's currently sitting in the 10th position behind Warsdale. So that's going to be something to look and keep an eye on, as well as Ogle and Robinson, as we mentioned, in 4th and 5th. And they're trying to work their way up into the top 3. Now, the top 3 have a little bit of a gap on those two, but it's not much, as they've linked up. You can see right behind, they are nose to tail. Robinson is almost pushing Ogle forward using that aerodynamics there. And really, they've caught this front pack a lot quicker than I expected. These two drivers have saved a whole lot of tyre, as well as the tyres really coming down and getting them earlier on. And it looks like Ogle's going to challenge Eddie Jones. One of these rivalries that we've gotten so used to seeing. Jones giving plenty of room, though, as Robinson also makes the pass on Eddie Jones. So these two really surging their way up through the field.
Yeah, and we are closing in on that 1/3 mark of the race, where if they want to do a two-stop strategy, we're at that. Of course, we did get a caution, a couple of them there, so that may move it to, say, lap 62 or so. But yeah, I'm just very surprised that Ogle and Robinson have been able to get there. But now, if we were to have a caution, you know, at any point in between there, say after 5 or 10, 15 laps after we went green, then Ogle and Robinson would be forced to pit again. So they're really happy it's gone green this long, to at least put them back on the same strategy, just to get back to where they are right now. I think they can eventually take the lead here, but you know, more or less they're kind of coming out about where they would have been had they have just stuck with the strategy that the 83 and the 7 have.
And it looks like there may be a little bit of equalization on the tyres at this point, because they've caught up, but once they passed Eddie Jones, it almost looks like they just slowed down a little bit. Whether that's a bit more to do with strategy, or genuinely have just burned up their tyres a little bit more on this longer run. I guess you'd know a little bit better about that than me as well, Eric, but looking so
Yeah,
far
well, I
like
think
they're
you're
struggling.
exactly right. They're just equalized, but you see Robinson, he was a little behind Ogle on their way to the front. Now that they're kind of equalized, it looks like Robinson's just a little quicker than him right now. Probably the fastest car on the track in that 23 car.
And as I look at the timing, it does appear that that is actually Dwayne MacArthur setting the fastest lap out of anyone at the moment. So Dwayne MacArthur still definitely solidifying his place up front, as he's just put the White Castle machine of the number 60 White Castle machine, I should say, of Michael Dow down 1 lap. As these guys continue to click off laps, put people down 1, and continue to have this nice battle up front. I'm constantly surprised week in and week out, the battles that are going on. Greg McDaniel also making a battle with Garisco now for the 8th position. McDaniel has saved a lot of tyre. I wonder if that is also to do with Ogle and the Ogle-Robinson strategy. Those two teammates, definitely good teammates to have, and will be very helpful, as Garisco actually makes a bit of an effort to get away from McDaniel. So I think McDaniel had a little bit of a bobble there, trying to catch back that position and challenge for it once again, as Garisco is going to see if Garisco has much of a block on McDaniel at the moment. And it looks like a little bit of a bobble going out of Garisco there, having to go down the track a little bit. See if McDaniel can capitalize. Garisco goes a little bit wide out of turn 2. Underneath Monster Bridge. And into turn 3. It looks like Garisco still has a nice lead on him for the moment, as McDaniel making that move. There it is. Very significant dive there. I'm not sure he's going to have enough of a run. And it does not look like it. So Garisco's still going to maintain that position. It's one of those tracks here at Dover, the Monster Mile. We've got to have eyes everywhere to keep a track of what is going on, as Clinton Rice has just taken the 12th place away from Brian Lynch, as Lynch falls back into the clutches of Jonathan Green just behind as well. McDaniel finally getting around Garisco just a little bit further up, making that the 7th place position. As well as we cycle back a little bit further, Victor Lane in the 27th spot is having a battle now with Chris Bates, who we saw earlier on doing quite well, but I think one of those short run cars that has just lost it over the long run, and Victor Lane is going to be, it looks like, making an example of that and showing us just the difference of getting those fresh tires on that car, and it looks like he has come down pit lane, even if briefly. So Victor Lane has come down and made sure that he's got a little bit more under that hood. Chris Bates does behind him. As it looks like the reason why, in case everyone is wondering at home, the reason why we haven't panned back to the front is mainly because they've really stagnated of where they are. MacArthur, Hill, Robinson and Ogle, they haven't really changed a whole lot. Robinson did overtake Ogle while we were watching some of these other battles further back. But other than that, these drivers continue to follow around each other, single file for the moment. And as we say that, Dan Hill runs a little bit wide into turn 3. And Robinson takes that spot away. So Robinson doing what Robinson does. And on the long run, I'm not sure, you might not like me for saying this, Eric, because I know you're one of them, but I'm not sure there's much better than Josh Robinson on the long run.
No, you're right. He gets 100% out of what he needs to do on any given run. So if caution comes out with 30 to go, he knows exactly how hard to run that car to get everything he can out of it. He just has a knack for that, and that's something you can't practice when it's midway through a run like that and you have a short or mid-sized run to the end of a race. But he just has a feel for it. He's smooth. He knows strategy, and that's why he's won more races than anybody in this league in the Cup Series.
Absolutely right. 3 wins to his name. Dwayne MacArthur just in front, though. He's also got 2 wins to his name. So certainly no slouches, these two up front at the moment. And it is looking like lap traffic may play a role in determining just how quickly Dwayne can try and hold off Josh Robinson, because Robinson is coming and coming quickly.
Yeah, and that's just, you know, it 3 laps, it does make a difference, but I think at this point, this is just the example of Robinson just conserving his tires. And then early on, we remember Dan Hill really pressured Dwayne MacArthur there for the lead, and now that this run is going on, you're kind of seeing the smooth running from Robinson is really paying off. It looks like he'll probably be able to get the lead here shortly.
Yeah, also an interesting point of note on top of all that is that there seems to be a difference in the lines that they're running, as the 19, is really going to check up. Dwayne MacArthur just behind, and that's going to be Dustin Martinson. Not too happy, I imagine, with Dustin at the moment, as Joshua Robinson continuing to put the pressure on in the 23 machine. But as I was about to say, you know, another interesting point is that these drivers do have a little bit different lines. You can see Robinson is choosing to stay a little bit higher, it looks like, in turns 3 and 4 and lower in turns 1 and 2. So I'm not sure if that's playing a little bit of a role, as well as the fact that he's got a little bit better saving on his tires as these drivers catch up to Chris Bates. And we're going to have to see where Bates goes, if Bates stays high or goes low. Bates stays low, right in the path, as Lloyd Moore looks like is coming down to pit road. Or coming out of pit road, I should say. So Lloyd Moore, actually probably the first driver to come down under green.
Yeah, actually, it looks like Lloyd Moore had a little software issue. I think he lost connection and just coming back onto the track here.
Oh, well, that's unfortunate for him. We see Dean Gear has also come down around about lap 64 as well. So they both came down around 10 laps ago. That's very unfortunate. Definitely not something you want to see of a hardware failure. As it looks like MacArthur and Robinson continuing this battle, and Robinson, would you, in this situation, Eric, you know, I'm going to do this right now. In this situation, would you push the issue if you were Robinson, or would you stay behind and let Dwayne do the hard work and make his way through traffic and just kind of follow along and pick your moment, not force too much as we were going to ask you, but it looks like Robinson is going to try. No, he's going to stay on the back bumper of MacArthur for the moment.
Yeah, and they are teammates, so they work together closely. So you kind of, you know, and Robinson, he's a guy, he's not going to put himself in a position that could potentially ruin his race. So on top of that being teammates, but yeah, at the same time, if there's an opening there and you can get it, you go ahead and do this, because if it goes green the rest of the way, you want to put maybe a second or two on MacArthur, and that way when you make your green flag pit stop, you have that much gap to that point. So yeah, you know, we're racing. I know there's a long way to go, but at the same time, you want to go ahead and set yourself up to win the race at this point.
Well, it looks like Robinson is going to be taking some of that advice as he has charged his way past MacArthur now. And potentially going to be able to stick his nose a full second pretty quickly. It looks like MacArthur is falling back quite quickly now. So maybe those tires just not performing quite as well as MacArthur was hoping for on the long run. And as we said, you know, he's been pushed to the brink for a whole lot of time so far. See Victor Lane just in front of Joshua Robinson there. This is a very, very solid green flag run. And when should we expect pit stops around about, do you think, Eric?
Well, it looks like no one's going to go with the two-stop strategy, and sometime we'll see that. But I think the 2 cautions early kind of spooked everybody to just stay out as long as they can. At this point, if they were to pit, they should be able to make it from here. So they are in their window if they wanted to, but they want to split where they were from the last caution. So, you know, it wouldn't be a surprise if they wanted to split it evenly to see them come in any time now. But with, like I said, if you get a caution at any point and you get lapped, now you're stuck a lap down. So these guys may just push it to lap 90 or 95. Where they could probably go on fuel. So definitely, though, in the next 10 to 15 laps, you'd see them come down pit road.
All right, well, we are getting very excited for that. And look what Robinson's already managed to gain himself about a second on Dwayne MacArthur, sitting in the second position. As you can see, just out of the corner, it looks like the 42 machine. What's happened to him? Mark Fish was coming out of pit road and then just rubbed against the wall. And I'm not sure what's going on there. Maybe having a little bit of issues as well, as he looks like he's coming straight back into pit road as soon as coming out. That left front is not turning.
I think he had that issue. We talked about that snap loose that comes out of the transition of the banking, and it looks like coming out of turn 4. It came around on him and hit the left front. And so he looks like he's going to be in the pits for a while, unfortunately.
Yeah, that front left did not look good at all. And he missed his pit box as well because of that, so he had to reverse back in. So that is very, very much going to hurt his chances. Unfortunately, 42 is going to be quite a few laps down by the time he comes back out onto the racing surface. So an unfortunate there, one there for Mark Fish. Brian Lynch has come down pit road. So I believe he's going to start the cycle for the cars on the lead lap, as Brian Lynch has come down pit road. Now, at the moment, our biggest mover of the race, Mr. Cameron Chaussee, in the 15th position so far, up 19th spots. And Bruce Pearson is actually the car just ahead. That's Wanamaker on his outside. But currently looking to track down Pearson just in front to try and make that up to the plus 20 mark for positions gained. And that's always absolutely astonishing to me when you can see a driver making their way through half of the entire grid. There are other notable mentions. Greg McDaniel up 18 positions, currently sitting in the 7th spot, and Wayne Hufford in the 11th position, up 17 spots. So these drivers, you know, sometimes we see this with these long green flag runs. You see some drivers that they manage to hold on to their tires a lot better than some of the other ones around the mid-pack, and it just seems to work for them.
Yeah, you mentioned Cameron Chaussee, who is in the number 13 Taco Bell car. You know, we don't normally talk about him being up front. He had I think, a good run at Talladega last week, but he actually come in here top 10 in points for the year after 10 races. So he's just one of those that keeps his nose clean and puts out good finishes week in, week out, and that's what you got to build on to become one of the front runners. So pretty impressed by what he's been able to do in that 13 car.
And Wayne MacArthur has come down pit road. So that's the breaking news at the moment. Obviously had enough of the tires underneath his machine, and he has come down pit road from that 2nd place position. So where is that going to put him when he comes out? Only time will tell. And he will definitely be a lap down here, as Sean Foltz also comes down pit road. And most important question, which I always love asking, is when Josh Robinson will come down pit road. Because as you said, he's a driver that seems to use up perfectly 100% of the fresh rubber that he has underneath it from the moment he gets it to the moment it's almost gone. And he looks so smooth while he's doing it the entire time. When does he come down pit road? Does he stay out as long as possible? Or should he come in soon now that he knows that MacArthur has just come down pit road?
Well, you know, it kind of forces his hand. I would say he would come in pretty quick here. But as we mentioned, you know, we saw Mark Fish have issues. Also look back and saw Schrader in the 12 car had the exact same issue coming out of turn 4. So anytime a caution could come out and change the whole race. So that was part of getting that lead and building up a little bit of gap. So maybe you can stand to stay out a few laps. Plus, when you do come down pit road, you'll have that much fresher tires than MacArthur. So, you know, it'll all kind of pan out. But I would say at this point, you know, you might as well come down pit road and maintain that track position, other than letting Dwayne get a few good laps here and get that lead back.
Well, it looks like he may not be heeding your advice for the moment, as he's going to continue to stay out right now. You can see McRubbin in the Duff machine has just come down pit road as well at the bottom of shot there. And it looks like that was Clint Rice getting one of his laps back as well, as he has made his way. And you can see the difference just in the speed with older and newer tires, as Clint Rice has just absolutely made mincemeat of Joshua Robinson as he went by and continues to absolutely monster through the field. And how fitting, I would say, that with Miles the Monster looking on. But yeah, as we go pan the camera back a little bit to Cameron Chaussee, and it looks like he is coming down pit road finally in the Taco Bell machine.
Yeah, and one thing too with Robinson staying out, now he's going to be one of the slower cars on the racetrack. So you kind of have a lap time in your mind. Say they're running 24 2s or 24 3s, but as guys are passing you, you have to give them the bottom because they're just dive bombing into the corners. And next thing you know, you're running 24 9s in 25 seconds because you can't get out of the way. So it's one of those issues where you need to pit, and here he comes.
Yeah, Josh Robinson very, very close indeed to tagging that car on the inside line. I believe that was Michael Dow, or no, that was James Wardlow. excuse me, that was James Waldo. So, unfortunately, well, fortunately, I should say, for Josh Robinson, managed to avoid him, but it looked like also that Dwayne MacArthur was just about to pass Robinson there, give him a little bit of a wave as he went by, as Robinson made his way into pit lane. But you can see right there, underneath MacArthur, actually, Chaussee was just heading out of pit exit. So I'm wondering how this will all cycle through. Dwayne MacArthur currently sitting in the 10th position. Clint Rice obviously pitted a little bit earlier. Clint Rice is actually further ahead, so he will definitely up front as Lee Warsdale, Brian Glass, Jonathan Green, and Jason Fellenbaum all yet to pit so far. With this looks like a little bit of a mess actually around Dwayne MacArthur right now. There are all sorts of different tyre strategies, all sorts of different speeds being run, and you've really got to pick your moments when you pass traffic to do so in a manner that's not too deadly, as it looks like MacArthur very much scared the driver just behind him. And I want to say that that was Brian Lynch. No, Brian Lynch is actually just behind there. So who was that?
Yeah, I think that was Philibom. Jason Philibom. It looked like he may have wiggled and juked a little, and I think MacArthur just kind of reacted. Luckily, they both came out pretty well there, but yeah, interesting moment for Dwayne in that situation.
You are absolutely right. It was Philibom as Warsdale relinquishes the top spot and comes down pit road. Interestingly, Brian Glass and Jason Fellenbaum, the only two drivers to still stay out at the moment. But I can't stress this enough how interesting this is to me. Brian Glass, currently sitting in the top spot, has only come down once, which was way back in the 4th lap during the first caution. And he's been going ever since then. So he's been on those tyres for 100 laps. I mean, that's pretty incredible. And he's going to have to worry about when he can come down to pit road even, because as you can see there, Dwayne MacArthur just went underneath him as well, followed by the 12 machine. So he's going to really struggle to find a gap as well, now being passed by Robinson there, to find a gap to get to the inside to actually make that run to pit road.
Yeah, and if nothing else, fuel. I'm surprised he's been able to go this far on fuel, but it looks like here he comes now. So, yeah, just using every drop he could. Maybe get a caution and flip the race upside down, but here he's coming down pit road.
Yeah, unfortunately, when there's no caution like that, all it does is really hurt you, rather than when you stay out this long, it just hurts your race if there's no caution to help you along. And unfortunately, that looks like it's going to be the case for Brian Glass as well as Fellenbaum, like you said, as he continues to stay out as well. He did come in about 10 laps later than Brian Glass did, so he's still got a little bit more fuel left in the tank if he's anything like Brian Glass at fuel saving here. But it looks like Clint Rice is going to take over the lead once Fellenbaum comes in.
Yeah, and you remember the very first caution, Clint Rice was spun out backwards into the wall, so for him to be in position to take the lead here, that's pretty incredible. But he's just gone on a different strategy to kind of short pit on this and see if he can't maintain this track position for a little while, and if he can catch a caution at the right time, it would really pay off.
Absolutely. I'm being shown here that it looks like he's come down around about 15 laps before Dwayne MacArthur, and that makes it about 24 laps before Josh Robinson. So Clint Rice, I'm not sure. Do we think he's going to be able to make it all the way to the end on fuel?
He
Came
should.
down in lap 74.
You know,
so
yeah, we saw Brian Glass go about 100 laps. So what happens is early on, you're using more fuel early on the run, but as the tires wear, you're obviously not on the gas as much. So these guys are getting a little bit more fuel out of it. And I think that's what happened with Brian Glass. But you can see Josh Robinson pitted a little later, and the tires are just making a huge difference here. He's going to get the position on Rice pretty quick.
Yeah, as Joshua Robinson has just made his way around Clint Rice as well as Dwayne MacArthur there. So they've both taken that position away, which is effectively our first place position. And MacArthur, surprisingly, is actually behind Josh Robinson now. So potentially staying out as long as he did for Josh Robinson, that paid dividends. I didn't expect to see that, but I do think he gained, from what I saw speaking from memory, he gained about a 2-second lap over Dwayne before he managed to pit. So that definitely probably a contributing factor.
Yeah, and one update too, want to point out, we saw Eddie Jones, last week's winner. During all that green flag cycle, he actually missed pit road and hit that tire barrier, or the
Oh
barrel
no.
there, and just nicked it enough, and so he's out of the race. But it's very difficult to get on pit road. One of your better racers, had trouble doing that. So just a tricky track altogether.
Absolutely. As Fellenbaum is caught up in an absolute mess of a pack right now, and this is one of those things where, Brian Glass was in this situation earlier. When he wants to come down pit road, he's stuck on the high side right now. It's going to be an interesting one. I think he tried to come down right there, but Brian Glass was in the way. Chris Bates has now taken over that spot, so he's in the way now, so he's not going to be able to come in this lap. And that's exactly 100 laps from when he last pitted, so he's actually going to go a little bit further than Brian Glass did. And I'm not sure how much fuel is left in that tank, and he's still stuck on that high side. If McDaniel gets there, McDaniel is going to put his car in the way. Pearson is going to be in the way now, and that's going to be very difficult. He's going to have to stay out again.
Yeah, but I mean, he's getting everything he can, and if he can just catch a caution, and he's done this before. I think it may have been Atlanta, and pulled off a top 3 finish there just from this strategy. So he's smart about this. He knows what he's doing, and but I think unfortunately he's going to have to pit here pretty soon.
I would absolutely imagine so. And there it is. And there's a little bit of a touch from Garisco. Unbelievably not getting too much involved. That's going to be a speeding penalty. I'm absolutely certain of that, unfortunately, for Fellenbaum. But he came down to pit, and I don't think Garisco realized just how old his tires were and how slow he'd have to go to be able to make it into the corner, let alone down pit road. So just giving it a little bit of a love tap. Thankfully, locking it down and neither driver involved in too much, but I believe Fellenbaum is going to have to serve a penalty for that one, as he came down much too hot. You could see the tires all on full brake and smoking like anything, as Joshua Robinson now takes over the lead.
Yeah, that's going back to that little pit road incident. They do have a review committee in this league that goes over all that, and they'll see if he called out his pit stop. So there's a lot that goes into that. It's just part of what makes this league great. Is iRacing doesn't have anything to control that, but these guys actually get 4 or 5 of them after every race, review these situations, and penalize those that need to be. So. It's just one of those racing things, what we talked about earlier. When you're out there on old tires, you're just a chicane, for everybody else out there. So it's just part of the strategy, but there's some things that go with it that you got to keep in mind as well.
Absolutely, but it's one of those things that I don't think either driver was particularly at fault. I guess the reviewers are going to have I guess they're going to have their work cut out for them to have a look at that one. And speaking of, we have a wreck, and right as all of the green flag run came to an end, and that looks absolutely devastating for Wanamaker, and his car looked absolutely worse for wear. As we try and get a look at exactly what happened here, the 65 on the high side. Oh, Wanamaker, I want to say came up a little bit, but the 65 had enough room. And Wanamaker gets turned a full 360 degrees. Clay Walker's coming in as well. And I think Clay Walker may unfortunately get involved in this one, and does so. The banking really not helping here at Dover. And fortunately, oh, it looks like, where did Brian Lynch come from? So Brian Lynch also involved in that one.
Yeah, it's a shame to see uh, Clay Walker there. We just talked about him. This was kind of his track, and just kind of got sucked into that. And Brian Lynch as well. He's another one of those guys. Lynch in the 9 car and the Hooters car come in here top 10 in points just by keeping clean. And Dover is going to take a bite out of that today.
As we try and cue that one up a little better. So this, yeah, 65, I want to say, of Kermit Gentry just didn't get quite as high as what Wanamaker was expecting. And I want to see what happened here as we see some of the lead lap drivers come down pit road. Dan Hill, McDaniel, Garisco, McRubbin, and Hufford all come down pit road to get some freshies. But what happened to Brian Lynch? I wonder, as I almost want to take a quick onboard Brian Lynch here and just see what's going on. Sees the wreck. He's trying to back it down. Oh, trying to go low, and the banking not working in his favor at all, as the drivers have come right down into his path. Just an unfortunate wreck for everyone involved.
Well, while we're under this caution, I caught up with Mark Fish, who had an issue during that green flag run. Mark, you got a copy?
Hey, I got a copy. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, unfortunately, looked like you were just having a decent run there, trying to stay clean, but looked like turn 4 bit you.
Turn 4 bit me. I just put a little too much throttle into it. It cut loose, and there was no saving it. Went right into the wall.
Well, you had a lot of shout-outs going on in the chat, so we were talking about you early in the race, and I hate that happened for you, but I know this is kind of like a home track for you with you being a Northeastern guy. You've been to this track a few times, so does it mean anything different for you to come to a place like this when you race? Feel like you kind of like it owes you something?
Yeah, I always wanted to run well here, better than most of the other tracks because it is my home track, like you said. I have been here. I saw Truex's first race here, which was awesome. First win here, sorry, which was pretty awesome. But, you know, I just wanted to come out here with a good finish, clean race, and unfortunately that did not happen tonight.
Yeah, well, we hated to see that. Grab one of those wrestling belts off your wall and put it on and get back out there and run a few laps.
Yeah, that'll help with the confidence. I'll definitely do that tonight, run around the house a little bit.
All right, Mark, we'll catch you again next week.
All right, guys, thanks for having me on, and you guys do a great job with the broadcast. Keep it up.
All right, well, that was Mark Fish joining us from the Infield Care Center. Sure, he's doing okay, but just an unfortunate series of events for him as well. Getting a little bit loose on the exit of pit road. I have tried that, I must admit. It's a lot more treacherous. It looks very easy from the camera angles, as you were letting us know earlier, Eric, but it's not as easy as it looks, especially with how much power these cars are, and they're dialed in to get 24 degrees of banking underneath them.
Yeah, and with the older cars, it seemed like with the from the 87 cars that they run to now, it's just the cars are a lot more jukey. They'll just snap on you real quick. And here's a track that's always like that anyway. So, it's not surprising to see a couple of guys have that issue coming out of these corners.
Yes, it looks like Josh Robinson and Dwayne MacArthur almost had a bit of an incident there as MacArthur got very close to the rear quarter panel of Robinson, thankfully not actually touching each other as Ogle tries to make his way on the high side as we missed the jump to green, but we saw it on camera, but we weren't talking about it, unfortunately, as we wanted to get as much information as possible out of Mark Fish's machine and how the conditions are happening on track. But it looks like Ogle going to be stuck on the high side now as Dan Hill tries to make his way through. And Dan Hill with a little bit of a blink there, thankfully not too disastrous though, as he's going to stay underneath the 11 machine of Tom Ogle and keep him pinned to the high side. So Hill is going to take over that spot. And you could see there, actually, I want to say, some team antics happening as McDaniel, I reckon, lifted just a little bit to let Ogle back in. As Wayne Hufford and Robert Garisco go at it for the 7th position. Wayne Hufford up 21 spots. Absolutely phenomenal driving from him. As Dan Hill just set the fastest lap on record so far tonight with a 22.96. Which is... he's the only one to break into the 22-second mark so far. So Dan Hill is absolutely ripping it around this track right now.
Yeah, Dan Hill, he's another one of those guys that, just kind of came in here and started to run well right off the bat. He has no wins, though, in the Cup Series. So, but he, I made a note about him that it wouldn't be surprised for him to get up there and win one before long. He's an Air Force guy. I've raced with him a couple times. We've had some epic battles, but very clean at the same time, and that's the best you can have there on the track. So, yeah, it'd be nice to see him run well and to get him a win. He does have 1 top 5 this year, 3 top 10, so just another one to add to the list here.
Yeah, his resume definitely does speak for itself at the moment. But a win just out of his grasp at right now, but certainly something that he's striving towards. And we're going to be very much anticipating that in the near future, as Tom Ogle is going to really challenge him, though, for the 3rd position. As Dan Hill manages to do a great job on that high line. Ooh, to really stay up high, but he did hit the barrier just a little bit there. Just a little bit of a bump and grind, nothing too major. As these drivers continue to go around, and I'm very surprised. I've got to take my hat off to Greg McDaniel, Wayne Hufford, Cameron Chaussee up 24 spots. Unbelievable drive from all these drivers, up 20 spots so far. And Troy Baker up 19 as well in the 17th position. These drivers are really ripping it through and around this track tonight. Miles the Monster has definitely had his fair share of victims, and he has eaten up quite a few cars here tonight. I'm showing about 10 actually that are either out or many laps down. But I will say that so far it's been a fairly clean race. We got our few cautions out of the way early. Only one big caution since then, and green flag runs, this is what people come for to see at the Old Bastards Racing League. Especially at the Kimball Cup Series. People expect to see the green flag runs, and I think we're giving them just that here tonight.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we expect out of this league. It's very hard to go through Dover without a caution. We've had 3, and I mean, that's you're not going to find that in any league, to go 135 laps and only 3 cautions. And a couple drivers I want to point out here. We mentioned Clint Rice, who spun early. It was the first caution. He ran a short pit strategy, and it's gained him a lot of track position. He's hanging on really well. But then just a couple spots behind him is Robert Garisco. We call him Crisco, just for the similar sounding name. That's his sponsor. Been in this league a long time, has never won a Cup race. Actually has never won Xfinity or anything, but he's just come so close. And he's put off some really good runs. He finished 6th a few weeks ago at Martinsville, beat me. I was 7th in that race. And here he is running top 10 at one of the harder tracks. So he's capable of getting a win, and I think he's another guy who could pull one off before you know it.
Absolutely, we've definitely seen sparks of brilliance from him as well. Just one of many drivers really in this league that we've seen some stellar performances out of in the past, and we're really expecting to see. Well, I mean, we've already got a fairly diverse field in terms of the amount of wins that everyone has, as well as, like you said, top 5s and top 10s all across the board. And that's just a testament to just how these guys drive and how good everyone is, as well as how safe the driving is here. And if you're interested, and I'm sure Eric will, Eric, do you want to give a little bit of a plug? You know what, now that we've got some time, a little bit of a plug to the Kimball Cup Series, if anyone's interested.
Yeah, as you see, we got 4 series that we run currently. You got Monday night, which is the ARCA cars. They're actually running the Gen 4, so it's kind of like an old Cup series right now that they're trying out. Wednesdays are the Truck series. They run the Xfinity currently on Thursdays, and then Sunday nights, as you're seeing right now, the Cup series. So large fields, probably the Cup Series is more healthy as far as getting a full field, but larger fields in the rest of the series that you'll see anywhere. And it's this type of racing. It's clean racing. If you're one of those guys that like to come in and run 10 hard laps and spin yourself out, you're probably not going to last too long. But that's why we have this healthy series that we do.
So how would you feel about, I don't know, just say an Australian broadcaster deciding he might want to get in the mix with a Gen 4 Cup car with these guys?
I think everybody would enjoy seeing you out there, and you'd be welcomed in with open arms. You would have to probably run a 3-digit number at first, but once you go through your 6 to 9 races, however the rules are on that, I don't know the details, but there is a probation period just to make sure that you'll fit the series, and you run a 3-digit number that's assigned to you, and then when you graduate, you get to pick your 2-digit number or one, and that's kind of like a special moment for these guys to finally get your 2-digit or 1-digit number.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly something to look forward to, and you never know, I might find myself getting involved, as well as anyone else who's interested. Definitely give these guys a shout out. They're probably some of the best on the iRacing service as far as I can work out. As you can see, a lap down car there, just giving way nicely to Dan Hill and Tom Ogle, as well as Josh Robinson and Dwayne MacArthur up front. But this battle we've been looking at while we've been talking, because Ogle is right on the back of Dan Hill. Unfortunately not able to get around yet, but the 7 machine is doing a phenomenal job. We were talking about it. He hasn't got a win yet in this series, but he has really all the makings of a driver that definitely deserves to be up there. And he's making his way as quickly as he can, and he's doing a great job of it. As we pan the camera a little bit further back, because Garisco is on the back of Wayne Hufford, with McRubbin not too far behind, and McRubbin, another one of those drivers that has just kind of run his race. Not got involved in anything, not had too many battles around him, just patiently made his way through the field and up into the 8th position. So great job from McRubbin as well.
Yeah, he fits that mold, kind of like those guys that are up high in points right now. That he's always very smooth and clean. You don't see him getting into anything on his own making, but if he always can pull off top 10 when he needs it. So just one of those that if things go right, strategies there, he can find himself top 5.
Absolutely, sitting in the 9th position now, as he's just lost a position to Clint Rice, who I think was saving tires or something just for a little bit, as he gets right on the back bumper of Garisco.
Yeah, it's a heck of a battle right there from Greg McDaniel in the 1 car. Then you got Wayne Hufford in the 75, and there's Crisco, like we talked about. He wants to get everything he can. He wants to get a win in this series, and when he's running well, he'll race you hard.
Looks like he's doing just that as well, with Rice right on the back bumper of that machine. But the 28 not giving an inch, and it seems to be working out pretty well. A lot of entertainment value, I'm sure, just shot up. And as well as, it looks like actually McDaniel is going to be losing some spots. And he's on the high side, and he's just backed out of this battle.
Yeah, he may have burned him up early. That's one thing that'll happen in a kind of a middle to late race caution, is there's still a long way to go. You still need to conserve your tires. Yes, it's not a full fuel run, but a lot of guys sometimes will go green there and just give it all they can, knowing that the race is winding down, realizing with about 30 or 40 to go that they don't have anything left to race with. So McDaniel, he's really smart. He's ran some good races, won a race this year at Kentucky. And but I think in this case he may have just burned up his tires a little early there.
Clint Rice actually hitting the back bumper of Garisco as you provided that insight for us on McDaniel. And Hufford getting a little bit loose and having to go up there as Clint Rice takes that spot away as well. So Garisco and Rice both, even though they were so intensely battling each other, both getting around McDaniel and Hufford. So great job from those two drivers. Garisco has now found himself in top 5 for this race as we start winding down, like you said. With 17 laps to go, not too many close battles within the top 10. I'd say the closest definitely the one right now between Dan Hill and Tom Ogle, as Ogle continues to try and find a way around Dan Hill.
Yeah, Ogle's one of those guys. He'll drive it hard. We've seen him get a little free or maybe over push it and find that edge, which Eddie Jones always likes to point out when he sees Ogle make a mistake. But right now he's running hard and trying to get that podium spot.
Looks like he's doing a job of it so far. And here comes, I'm noticing through the pack, Lee Warsdale has just passed McRubbin for the 10th place spot, and it looks like he's catching up to Cameron Chaussee quite quickly. So, like you were saying earlier, one of those drivers that potentially has just been biding his time and taking care of his tires, and is now in full attack mode as we've got less than 15 to go.
Yeah, if you have been conserving, you know, as funny as it is, there's still 15 laps. You can burn them up trying to run qualifying laps at this point. So, you know, you want to push hard and get all you can out of them, but at the same time, you still can burn them up so quick that you'll drop like an anchor, like we saw McDaniel do just a few laps ago. But it looks like he's cooled them down and kind of found him a pace here.
Absolutely, as McDaniel is sitting in the 8th position and quite comfortable moment. Well, as I say that, Chaussee is trying to prove me wrong as he's right on the back bumper of that number 1 machine.
And Warsdale there in the 99, the Cheddar's machine. He's one of those guys that he does struggle with tire conservation, but here he is at a track that's all what it's all about. And he's running top 10 right now. So I think great run for Warsdale in the 99.
Well, and that's the thing. You've been around these guys for quite a lot longer than myself, and you've grown to learn potentially some of these drivers, what they're good at, what they struggle with, and how they act on track, as well as a few other things. And it's always fantastic. You know, I love seeing you in here, Eric. I know it's only the second time we're working together, but I mean, I just want to give, I guess, a shout out to you while we're talking as well, because you know you provide us with the extra insight as a commentator, and you know, as a commentator, I love to have not only the company but also the insight that you provide is, you know, second to none.
Well, it does come with being out here with these guys, and that's what makes a league fun. If you're an iRacer that runs in the Open Series, you don't know who you're racing with from one week or one race to the next, and you don't know their driving style. You don't know if you can race them side by side and not worry about getting wrecked. Whereas here, you know everybody's driving habits, and everybody gets along, and you know, I was just telling you before the broadcast that, or some of the guys I was talking to, that if this was a group that I didn't know anything about, I wouldn't be interested in doing this. But I enjoy talking about these guys. They're just a great group of racers, and it's fun to give them shout outs and watch them race.
Well, I mean, I hope that I can come to know these drivers as well as you do, but I'm sure it'll take me a very long time to get to that point. But we go back and watch the battle now for the 14th position, as James Waldo is right behind, or right in front of, I should say, Courtney Nelson. And they're fighting it out. The 89 machine and the 30. And both of these drivers up 10 spots or more from where they started. So they're doing a great job with only 7 laps to go. And they're looking very racy indeed. These two continue to be nose to tail. We've only got 6 laps left in this one. Also got a very close battle shaping up for the 6th position as Wayne Hufford is trying to find a way right in front of those two, trying to find a way around Garisco.
Yeah, Crisco was doing a great job getting top 5, but it looks like, yeah, as we talked about, tires, and he's starting to pay the price a little bit. And then you see James Waldo there that we're talking about. They were just in the wrong spot on strategy and fell a lap down, but you see, otherwise they would be running in the top 10 right now with their speed. So, you know, it's just the way the race planned out for them, and here they are just doing the best they can, but a lap down.
Oh, a little bit of a bobble up front as we pan the camera back. Sorry about that, but Dan Hill has just had a little bit of a moment, and that has allowed Tom Ogle to catch up, and Ogle goes for a spin as Dan Hill gets into the back. Somehow there is no caution that has come out of as a result of that, unbelievably, as Dan Hill now, I believe, is going to be sticking it up high a little bit, and who's going to be the biggest winner of that one? It's going to be Clint Rice, as he's trying to take that 3rd spot away from Dan Hill now, and does so. So Dan Hill getting into the back of Ogle just ever so slightly on the exit of turn 2. And
yeah, it looked like, I just looked at it, Ogle looked like he was just trying to get around Hill, and then he broke loose right in front of Dan Hill. So that's where the contact came from. I don't think Dan Hill did anything wrong there. Just Ogle got a little loose in front of him, had to check up. Dan Hill got in the back of him, and now here they are battling again.
yeah, well, definitely, you know, even if it was just accidental, I'm sure some tempers are going to be flaring as Ogle and Hill right behind each other once again. But Rice is going to be, as I said, the big winner of that one. And it looks like, yeah, Dan Hill, I believe, just then done the sportsmanlike thing and let Ogle back in front as they continue to go around this one. But it looks like Josh Robinson taking the win by storm. Dwayne MacArthur and Clint Rice going to be the lucky 3rd place from this event. So little bits of drama here and there as we made our way to the checkered flag. Surprisingly, no late caution. I was almost thinking we could have quite an epic finish coming our way, but it stayed green, which I'm sure Robinson is very happy for, as he didn't have to worry about a charging MacArthur towards the later end of the run. But, you know, great race from all these drivers once again, and really got to give your hand out to them as we bring up the results. So Josh Robinson, as we know, in the 1st place position, Dwayne MacArthur in 2nd, and Clint Rice in 3rd. We will roll through the grid, through the results, so you can see where your driver finished up, of who you'd like to see, where they ended, who you're voting for. But while we do so, we'll get a quick Eric Essery opinion on how that race went from the booth's perspective.
Well, it brought what Dover does. You saw the short pitting. You had a little bit of different strategy, but Clint Rice there in the 6 car, who finished 3rd, he was really the only one who really took advantage of what the strategy can give, and give him track position and put him right there where he could take advantage of that moment between Ogle and Dan Hill. So, you know, there's a lot of things that can go on with these, and you never know when the caution comes out. But thought it was a good race overall, even though Josh Robinson got a nice lead there on the end and kind of stunk up the show.
Stunk up the show. As we get ready to start our driver interviews, as we wait for the drivers to actually make their way into the waiting room. But while we're still waiting for that, you know, I'd like to once again, as always, I know I've done it too many times probably already this broadcast, but as always, shout out to the guys here at the Old Bastards Racing League. You know, every single Sunday night they put on a fantastic show, and this was no exception. And, you know, I super excited to call the action as we've got Wayne MacArthur, excuse me, finding his way into the waiting room, and we'll see if Josh Robinson and Clint Rice join him. Clint Rice has joined him in the waiting room, so just waiting on Joshua Robinson while we riced in and get ready to talk to some of these drivers. Eric, once again, I will bring you in for a comment or two if you're happy to do so, and get ready to get our interviews underway. Leave. Robinson has joined us. All right, sweet. So we're going to get our interviews going here, starting off with Clint Rice in the number 6 machine. Clint Rice, how are you feeling, buddy? That is a phenomenal job. You may have been gifted 3rd position there at the end. What was going through your mind when you found out that Ogle and Dan Hill got together and you managed to sneak past both of them?
I wasn't thinking anything. I was thinking I was going to be sitting back there and finishing where we're finishing behind them. But I don't know, I got lucky and it turned out good.
I tell you, you may have been lucky. It definitely turned out good for sure. But you know, regardless, how was that race from your perspective? Because we know you were involved in that wreck from the very early get goings, and then you changed up your strategy because of that. It seemed to pay out pretty well for you. You found yourself back up into 3rd. I mean, that's almost
Yeah,
astonishing.
yeah. I ended up pitting and fixing my damage. I didn't take tires that first time, but ended up fixing my damage and I ran that out and wore my tires out and I ended up getting lucky and short pitting. I almost spun off a 2, so I was like, okay, I'm just going to short pit. And I don't know, had there not been that last caution, I wouldn't have made it on fuel. So I really got lucky.
All right, well, Eric Essery, I'll bring you in if you don't mind giving a little bit of a chat to Clint Rice. Maybe stir the pot a little bit. I don't know what's going on through your head, but we'll see what's happening there.
No, Clint, that was pretty impressive though to come from spinning out to, and I've noticed you short pitted there to put yourself in position to kind of get back in the race. But I would say that just because you're driving a Days of Thunder car doesn't mean you should drive like in a Days of Thunder and spin out and then come back and finish 3rd. I say that kiddingly, but you know, and just notice your paint scheme and it kind of fit the mode of the race for you.
Yeah, I was hard at it the whole time.
All right, well, Clint, we're going to let you go, but before we do so, anyone you'd like to shout out, give a little message to, friends, sponsors, family, all is resting at your word, my friend.
Yeah, I'd like to thank admin for putting the show on. Without them, we wouldn't have it. And I don't know, this is a blast. Thank you guys.
All right,
Yes,
sounds
sir.
good. Good, Clint. Happy to have you in the booth, and we will see you in the near future, I'm sure of it. Take a good break, and we'll see you next week.
Take it easy, guys.
Yep, good job.
Right, that was Clint Rice joining us in the 3rd place position. Next up, Wayne MacArthur bringing it home in 2nd. Wayne, how are you feeling right now?
A little exhausted, a little tired, feeling pretty good though.
Yeah, feeling a little bit tired. I tell you, you were having a fantastic battle early on. I would almost like to list off your opponents, but I'm afraid I'm going to have a bit of a struggle here. But you had Dan Hill right on your tail for the longest time, and then all of a sudden, Josh Robinson was right there. I mean, that must have got under your skin a little bit.
No, I saw him. Tom and Josh stopped and had those tires. I knew late in the run that Josh and Tom were going to show up with those newer tires. Once I actually saw the pink one come first. I think he led the way through, and I knew it was an inevitability. Sorry, that they'd get there. I mean, Miata likes to hunt in packs. That's kind of how they do it. So Dan likes to, Dan wore me out a bit for Josh, and but it was expected.
Well, I tell you what, I mean, you did a phenomenal job of getting in this 2nd position. And Eric, anything you'd like to add to our interview here tonight?
Well, I'm interviewing Dwayne again for 2 seconds in a row, so you got to step it up one. But that run there where Dan Hill was right behind you, were you pushing it a little harder than you wanted to at that point that may have kind of hurt you on the long run?
Actually, I was just talking to Josh about that in the room there. I was trying to just stay right in front of him, and every time he'd kind of look like he was peeking, I ran a different line in the corners, and it was really fast, but I kind of thought it was gonna wear my stuff out, so I kept defaulting back into a different line, and what I was doing to stay in front of Dan turns out is what Josh did to drive away from me. So maybe I should have just stuck with that line a little bit. I just didn't trust it. I didn't put enough practice in to see if that line would hold for a long run, and that's how that played out.
All right, Dwayne. Well, look, we're going to have to let you go, but before we do so, as per usual, who'd you like to shout out to for getting another second place? So, not quite what you were hoping for, but definitely not too far off it. And we know you're going to get one in the future. So, while you still can, who'd you like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, no, I'm really excited for a P2 in this league. That's a field full of studs, a lot of great drivers at a really difficult track where a lot of things can go wrong. So thankful that there was no cautions during the pit cycle. That tends to happen on short tracks a little bit and can really mess things up. But want to thank all the guys out there for putting on a good show. All of our sponsors, Aologs, Admin, Box Butt Kicker, Sim Racer Hub, of course, our series sponsor, Kimball and Victory Lane Sports. And of course, you guys for putting on the show. And Eric for guest hosting again. Looking forward to hearing it back probably tomorrow morning or something. And should be a good one.
All right, sounds good, Dwayne. We will catch you later. Have a great night, and I'm sure we'll see you next week.
Oh, I hope so. Don't take it for granted, but we'll see. I like Kansas, so we'll see how it goes.
Yep, good job.
Yep. Thanks.
All right, that was Dwayne MacArthur bringing it home in the second position, but finally and definitely not, well, definitely not last in our hearts and definitely not last in the race, but our last interview tonight, Josh Robinson bringing it home in P1 once again. Welcome back to Victory Lane.
Gareth, Eric, how you guys doing?
I'm doing great. Eric, how are you doing?
Oh, this has been another fun afternoon of watching you guys race like you do, and wasn't no surprise to see Josh win another one.
Appreciate it.
Speaking of Josh, I mean, you do this week in and week out. I think I've asked you for your secrets before, and I know you may not want to indulge too much, but how do you save? We were talking during the broadcast. Eric and I were talking about how you just seem to get 100% out of those tires every single time you put tires on that car. From start to finish of green flag runs, you seem to have it perfectly figured out. How do you do that?
That is definitely the game plan every time the crew throws another set on there. It tonight was kind of an unequal balance on the tires. Usually we're burning up the right front, and the right rear is what it is. But tonight you could really burn up the right front and it was okay. But you just really had to protect that right rear. So you wanted to be sure not to get full throttle in the middle of the corner because it would start to come out on you. And then you definitely wanted to try not to get any heat in them on the corner exit.
Seemed to work out very, very well. Eric, I know you're probably burning to get something something said here with Josh in the booth, so I'll let you have your say as well.
Well, Josh, that's your 28th career win. So you are about 8 ahead of Dwayne, who would be second as far as the active drivers in here. But during that last run of green flag pit stops, you went quite a bit longer than when Dwayne pitted. What was your thinking there? Do you think maybe a caution would come out, or were you just thinking, I want fresher tires for late in this run?
Definitely both of them. So Tom and I, and I think Greg and Lee and a couple others had done that pit stop between 10 and 20 when we had that. I think it was the second caution of the night. So I knew I had a little bit fresher tires to keep it rolling there, and then I was definitely nervous about a caution coming up, and I didn't want to go too long because I didn't want to have to run Dwayne down again because I had less laps to do at this time, and Dwayne is really good, so if he would have definitely learned on that first run and not let me do that on the second run. So I was thinking about 5 to 10 more just to try the overcut, and I think it was going to work out pretty well. Dwayne and I were going to have a pretty good race there, but it turned out that we ended up getting a caution, and it kind of didn't matter.
Well, no surprise that you were thinking all of that through. So I thought maybe a little bit of that was going through your head, but at the same time, you're out there racing, and it's hard to be crew chief and drive this thing at the same time.
Absolutely. Sometimes I just got to tell myself, stop thinking and drive.
Tell you what, Josh, sometimes thinking about all of the things and possibilities ends up working out and paying dividends, and it seemed that way tonight. So I will say, you're the most winningest driver here in the Kimball Cup Series so far this season, and we hope you continue winning ways. But before we let you go, who would you like to give a shout out to for this first place position? The floor is yours.
I want to give a shout out to my team. Tom, Dan, Brian, and I were here tonight, and we were definitely bouncing ideas off each other in practice, trying to see what was working for everybody. So that was a huge help. Shout out to you guys for doing the broadcast. These things are always good, and Eric's been a pretty darn good addition with all his stats. No one appreciates those more than me. So, and then shout out to the league. There's a lot of work that goes in with the admins, and shout out to the field. This is a tough track with setup that got loose about after 20 laps, and we had some really good racing throughout the field, so good to see that.
Maybe you just like the stats because you're always on the top of them. But Josh, it's been great to talk to you. And once again, just before you go, Eric, you got anything more just to add, just briefly, to Josh, just before we send him on his merry way?
Just another good job. You're kind of the point, the factor that we look at on where everybody else is, and so yeah, no surprise. That's fourth win on the year and 11 starts. So looks like you got a lot of wins going for the year ahead of you.
I appreciate it, guys.
All right, sounds good. Well, Josh, we will let you go, and we will speak to you, I'm sure, pretty soon. And good luck at Kansas Speedway next week.
Thanks, guys. Have a good week.
You too, my friend. All right, that was Josh Robinson bringing it home on the front position, way up there in first place. Feeling pretty good, it looks like, and feeling pretty happy, so that's always good to see. Eric, thank you for joining me once again in the booth. I could not be happier to see you there. And thanks to everyone for turning out. This has been a fantastic broadcast. Anything you'd like to give, final comments on this race, or anything you're looking forward to for next race, Eric?
Just Dover. It's one of my favorite tracks, if not the favorite one for me to race on. Just from what we saw with the tires and strategy and everything that goes into this one, the challenge it puts it in the driver's hands, and we saw that. And now you're going to go to a mile and a half. I think it's Kansas. So a little bit different show, but with these cars, they can still put on a good show at that track. So looking forward to it.
All right, sounds good. And once again, just before we leave tonight, I have been your host, Gareth McAllister, bringing you the action in 1080p 60 FPS with Team Goon Squad as well, accompanied very, very much by Eric Essery. Fantastic having him in the booth. I'm sure you all enjoyed it, and I certainly appreciate it. So big shout out to him. We will see you all next week at Kansas. Have a fantastic night, and I guess we'll see you then. Night, everyone.